Today, I'm gonna break down the exact system I use to help my client Shane Hernandez win the Rocket Combat lightweight title, all while working a full-time job. Most MMA fighters out there are training hard, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna peak when it matters most. This system is not just about showing up strong, it's about being fast, mobile, explosive, and ready to dominate. Now, most fighters I speak to are doing all the right things, at least according to their coaches. They're lifting heavy weights, they're sprinting, they're sparring multiple times a week, sometimes multiple sessions per day. But then when it's time to perform, they gas out early, they feel achy in their shoulders, their hips, and their low back, and they don't feel that strength from the gym carry over to their actual sport. Now, the reason for this is because most fighters focus only on training linearly when fights are all about angles and rotation. This can look like doing box squats for maximum weight. It can look like doing bent over rows and getting really stiff and tight in the lower back, or just doing circuits that leave you fatigued but don't actually improve your conditioning when it comes time to fight. What you need is a structure that builds strength and conditioning. What we did with Shane was break down his fight camp into 2 3-week blocks. Now, I had been working with Shane for 3 months already, but once we found out the exact date of his fight, we broke it down to help him peak at his absolute best come fight night. And we focused on 5 things during the first block, and this was called the output phase. The 5 areas of focus were: 1, repeated sprint ability. And the reason we focus on this is because he needed to be able to go all out in a very rapid amount of time in order to dominate. Most combat sports are not linear in terms of intensity. If you go into a scramble, that's gonna be an increase in intensity, but then if you're dominating or holding control over your opponent, that's gonna be a decrease in intensity. So you need to be able to repeatedly sprint and execute at your maximum capacity over and over again. So the way we train this is using intervals. We focused on going maximum effort for no more than 10 seconds and then helping him recover and doing that for 10 to 12 rounds. And in order to make sure that we could keep his joints healthy, we did this using different pieces of cardio equipment. So for example, the rowing machine or the Airdyne bike. The second area that we focused on during the output phase was his strength training. During the first block, we really focused on pushing intensity and keeping him strong. But it wasn't just about force development, it was also about speed and explosive power. So we combined strength movements like Zercher squats and floor presses with explosive rotational movements like the landmine snatch or the landmine clean and press. This helped him get the benefit of both linear strength development as well as explosive rotational power. So the second area of focus was the strength training, and the third was that rotational power. Because like I said before, combat sports are not linear. They're all about angles and rotation. That's how you get the advantage over your opponent. So we did this using different forms of coiling, such as the wall coil or the coil punch. We also did the coiled hip flexor raise to help him synchronize his core with his hips so that he could deliver more power with each punch and each kick. Then we focused on mobility, but instead of having him stretch for hours on end, we did loaded stretching. So this could look like holding the bottom of an ATG split squat with dumbbells, finding the deepest range of motion possible and using the load from those dumbbells to help us secure an even deeper range of motion. This meant that he could get all the benefits of stretching without spending hours on it. So he got more improvement in his mobility with less time spent. And then for the upper body, we used a loaded bicep stretch. So he was able to open up his biceps, his pecs, the front of the shoulders, all without having to spend hours working on mobility. And the last focus of the output phase was his recovery work. This is something that is neglected by so many fighters, but it's really important, especially for fighters that also work full-time jobs like Shane, because let's face it, if you have other responsibilities outside of your fight career, your recovery is gonna be affected by anything that causes you stress. So what we did was we dialed this in. After every session, he focused on recovery breathing. This took him from fight or flight mode, which he was in during training, going absolutely as hard as he could, to rest and digest so that he was able to enter into a recovery state as soon as possible. And then the last element of his recovery work was rope flow. Rope flow is extremely powerful helpful for fighters because it allows you to get into that flow state, right? If you just finished up a really hard sparring session or you just went live rounds, row flow is one of the best ways to get back into that flow state while calming the nervous system and helping you again get back to that rest and digest state and out of fight or flight. Now, the key when we're looking to peak for a competition is we want to be in fight or flight mode only as long as we need to, and the rest of the time we want to be in rest and digest because that allows us to spend more time recovering from the work that we put in. The output phase helped him stay strong, springy, and mobile without breaking his body down. Then we got into his peak taper. This was the last 3 weeks leading up to this fight. During the peak phase, the focus is helping him to sharpen his skills while keeping his nervous system fresh. This means that we decreased the volume of his lifts. If he had a really hard week of training, we would only go 2 days of strength training. If he was feeling good, we would go 3. But regardless, the volume would come down. So let's say instead of doing 5 reps on a strength exercise at 8 or 9 out of 10 intensity, he would just do about a 7 out of 10 intensity. This helped him still get the strength stimulus without breaking down his nervous system or his body. The second focus of the peak phase was also just keeping the intensity high. Just because we were decreasing the volume of his reps didn't mean that we weren't still training hard. We wanted him to stay strong, stay explosive, but not break down. And the third focus was sport-specific conditioning. We had already built up that repeated sprint ability in the output phase. Now, during the peak phase, we really just focus on helping him get his conditioning from the sport itself. So what he did was focus on going through Shark Tank rounds in practice. So it would be just him in the middle with fresh guys coming at him every single go for a period of 3 to 5 minutes. Now, this helped him really sharpen his skills under extreme pressure and also improving his conditioning, doing the exact same thing he was gonna have to do during the fight. The last area of focus during the peak phase was mobility and breath work. He was training so much, he was training at a high intensity with the Shark Tank goes. We wanted to make sure that he was recovering from that intensity. So he would do daily mobility work from 5 to 15 minutes in the morning and then a little bit more at night, and then also really dialing in the breath work and a rope flow. Since he wasn't lifting as much, we wanted to increase the frequency of his recovery work to help him just feel his best when it came time to fight. Another area of focus during the peak phase was obviously getting his weight down. I gave Shane a weight cut protocol which he followed leading up to the fight, and he didn't even have to use a sauna suit until the last day of his weight cut. He weighed in at 153 pounds for the 155-pound weight class with all of his clothes on. He was able to get his weight down while still feeling springy, athletic, and mobile, and that carried him into the fight. This means he didn't have to do any type of extreme cardio, he didn't have to dehydrate himself, and he didn't cut water more than 24 hours out from weigh-ins. And I want to make one thing clear. Shane works a full-time job. He didn't have all day to train. He didn't take time off for camp. He just stuck to the structure and it worked. On the days that he worked his job, he lifted. On the days he had off, he trained. And the biggest thing is that he was consistent, which is what made every session count. If you're a combat athlete and you're training hard, but you still feel like you're consistently gassing out, maybe your body is stiff and tight, or you just don't feel like you're ready to peak when it matters most, click the link in my bio to apply to work with me and get the same results that we helped Shane get as Rocket Combat Lightweight Champion.